Hey guys, it's Andy here from Mediocre Hobbies, bringing you another eBay rescue style video. So this miniature didn't come to me via eBay. I like using the term eBay rescue as just a generic term for getting a miniature that needs a bit of love and restoration and going about that process. I think the term eBay rescue means that to a lot of us. It's like as soon as you hear those words, you know what to expect from the video. So as you see, I'm working on a fire Raptor today. This was donated to me by a friend of mine who was moving to a different country and could not take it with him. He had grand notions of crazy designs and colors and stuff like that obviously didn't mean a lot to me. So of course I had to change it up and fit it into one of my legions. Originally it was going to be my Imperial Fists, but then after reflection I already have 4 or 5 pieces of armor for my Imperial Fists and only 2 for my Sons of Horus. So I think I decided that's where it belongs, that aqua green color. So I obviously had to break this model apart, get it cleaned up, reassemble as best I could, and then paint it up. So let's get into that. Okay, and this is the fire Raptor in question. Like I said, it was donated to me by a friend of mine who emigrated countries, and he couldn't take it with him. He said I had full reign to do what I want with it and paint it up as any chapter or clean it up or change it or do anything like that. So he went for, I think it was like a kind of a Chaos the Emperor's Children style. He used mostly airbrushing, in fact entirely airbrushing I believe, so all of the paint is quite thin. It doesn't need to be stripped down, except for where stencils were put on. When a stencil was put on and then airbrushed over the top of it, it's a very rough surface. You can definitely like feel the outline of all of the transfers. So I'll have to do something about the areas where there are transfers before I try and spray over or do anything. There's also some gaps and stuff, which I wouldn't be happy with leaving. So I'm going to do my best to kind of pull apart pieces, clean other parts up, straighten things out, get it back together, and see if we can make this thing into the glorious machine that it should be. At this point in the process, it was going to be part of my Imperial Fists Legion. I had visions of glorious yellow flyer strafing across the walls of Terra, defending Holy Earth, all that kind of jazz. And it was only until kind of later on in the process that I realized that wasn't going to be possible. And I'll explain why when I get to that point. So the first thing I did is I used acetone. Now acetone on this model is half resin, half plastic. Acetone is not particularly a good idea to put on either. So I'm only putting it on in really small amounts. So I have a wet Q-tip and I've loaded it up with acetone. And then from there, I'm just going to lightly scrub back and forward over the areas where the transfers were applied, just to get rid of those kind of hard edges like I was talking about. Now it leaves a horrible kind of sticky residue over the top of it, so you do need to then go into like pure water with a brush and wash it off kind of stuff. It's not a very nice process. In the end, I did have to do a bit of extra scraping just to get the extra gunk off. But I am definitely glad I went through with this process to remove this part. If you have models that you need to strip, and there's a particularly bad kind of a gunked up area, this tip will help a lot with that and with getting it kind of tidied up. As you can see, acetone absolutely eats through paint. You can see how quickly it goes back down to the plastic resin and black spray. That bright pink just comes straight off. So that should tell you all you need to know about how harsh of a chemical acetone really is and why it's not a recommended product for stripping plastic or resin. It's only really for metal models, in my humble opinion. I will be doing a video in the very near future where I will be testing out Green Stuff World's new paint remover. So hopefully I can give you guys a better idea of what you should use if you want to strip models in the future. So look out for that video. So I went about this process anywhere where there was stencils. So there was 2 big ones on the top, 2 big ones on either wing, and then on the side door panels there was also some transfery bits there. So as you can see, it is leaving that horrible gunky residue behind, but it is giving it a nice clean. You can see all the outlines and all those kind of bits and pieces. In trying to straighten up this nose part, which goes over the front cannons, it just came clean off. It just snapped off, which was good for me because it means then I could clean it up properly, scrape off any of the old glue, and then I did the old hot water, boiling water trick, submerging it and straightening it out so it sit really flush against the hull of the flyer. So if you can, during the rescue of any miniature, and pull any bits apart that aren't sitting right and give them a nice cleanup. Do make sure you get rid of any of the excess glue. If it didn't sit together in the first place, it's definitely not going to sit together correctly with all the extra kind of glue and stuff with it. So here's where I started to go through the process of sliding the blade between the panels. Because the model is half resin and half plastic, it would have been put together with super glue. And as even that bit there wasn't supposed to pop off with that bit of pressure, but it did. I'm okay with that. I'll just give it a proper clean and stuff like that. So I'm trying to loosen the sides of the miniature. There you go, the other wing popped off. Because all of these panels were not sitting right. There was huge big gaps between them all. That was driving me nuts. And I wanted to see if I could close them up a little bit before I went ahead and resprayed, painted, or fixed anything like that. So after a lot of prizing, I did manage to pull the panels apart like you see here. I did manage to slide the knife between, scrape off some old glue, add some fresh glue to it, and then push them back together. In order to keep them together, I used zip ties. I know it seems like a kind of an extreme solution, but it did the trick beautifully. I got to push all the panels together and then just leave it for 5 or 10 minutes until the glue was really, really set. And it sealed up, I'd say, kind of 85% of those gaps. It wasn't perfectly flush. I think that's just something you're gonna have to deal with when you're working with Forgeworld resin miniatures, unless you're gonna go in with a lot of putties and stuff. You are gonna end up with some slight gaps, but gaps you hopefully shouldn't notice when you go to the painting process. So as you can see, all those panels are sitting much more flush together. Here's an example of one of the pieces I managed to pull off the top, which is of course spoon shaped. And all you need to do to fix resin that's this kind of spoon shape or bent out of shape is a cup of boiling water. You submerge the piece in boiling water. Sometimes it will just retake its natural form and straighten out itself. But other times, as you submerge it, it basically becomes like a jelly piece. And all you do is pull it straight. So you can see it bends. Hold it straight for a few seconds until it cools down. And once it cools down a tiny bit, it goes rock solid again and it's straight. I did that for the nose part and that kind of panel pit on top there that was just showing you. So after I've gotten all of those bits and pieces cleaned up, I have it reassembled. And I know at this stage it looks kind of like a mess, but as you can see me rubbing my thumb across the parts to see if it's nice and smooth and ready to take a new coat of spray. Okay guys, as you can see, it was quite a difficult miniature to pull apart, but we did get it pulled apart. We got all of the worst parts of the paint cleaned off. We got the model reassembled and once again sprayed up, ready to be painted. I just want to take this opportunity to thank you guys for your continued support for me and my channel. If you are not already subscribed to me, it would mean a lot to me if you take 2 seconds out of your day to hit that subscribe button below. Makes a little impact on your day, makes a huge impact on mine, so I would really appreciate it. Make sure you like the video, and if you have any questions about anything that I've done on this video so far, make sure you drop in the comments below and I'll get back to each and every one of you guys. And if you want to help me make bigger, grander videos moving forward, the best way to do that is to support me over on my Patreon. Links to that below. Thank you guys so much for watching, and let's get this model painted. Okay, and here's the part that I was talking about earlier. This is the point where I realized it wasn't going to work as Imperial Fists. Too many of the panels are scratched or scraped or pockmarked, or it didn't come out as smooth as I would like. So here's where I went on my heels and decided I was going to add this onto my Sons of Horus army. The reason I did this is when I'm going to my Sons of Horus army, I'm using the beautiful Artis Opus dry brushes, which I think should be renamed to the Artis Opus stipple brushes. These bad boys here, the Series D. If you've not watched any of my videos using these brushes yet, or if you haven't gone over and checked out the Artis Opus site and checked out Byron's videos, the man's a wizard with these brushes, and I'm slowly learning what he does and how he does it. But these were going to give me a really nice kind of mottled stipple effect across the hull that even from kind of 12 inches away, you're not going to notice it. It's going to look like this beautiful solid color. But it's not a pure solid color, which means that any of the impurities in the armor panels and stuff underneath that you can even see here on the black, screams through on the black, are going to get covered up with this beautiful color. So this is starting off with Lupercal green, and all we're going to do is give the entire armor part of this miniature a light stipple with the extra large dry brush, and this just starts off the color beautifully. As you can see, I'm loading it and wiping off the majority of it on the texture pad from Artis Opus as well. These brushes were very kindly sent out to me for a previous video. They're not sponsored for this video, so as you can see, even when I'm not using them for a video where I'm sponsored, I'm still using the product. I really enjoy them, and they're definitely going to be a mainstay in my painting arsenal for many years to come. As you can see, look at the horrible texture across the top. And if I was to hit that with the Sons of Horror, with the Imperial Fist colors that I do, so either the contrast or anything like that, I think it's just going to make those lines scream out even more, and that would just annoy me. And so I also realized that my Imperial Fist army has, I think, 5 or 6 pieces of armor already, and my Sons of Horus only had a Rhino and a Dreadnought. So adding an extra piece to that army is probably actually made more sense in the long run. So I followed through with this stipple. Like I said, it's kind of a medium to light stipple job across the whole. Trying to get a solid enough color, but you don't need to go crazy. We then move over to Sons of Horus Green. This one is where you want to be a little bit more selective, hitting along higher panels, taking your time, and making sure you get that really nice coat across the whole. It's funny, it's one of those processes that you have to really trust, because after you do the first section like you did there and you look at it, you're like, oh, I don't know whether this is, am I making a good idea or a bad idea here? But then as you can see, the more of the hole that I start to work into with that Sons of Horus Green, the more that color starts to shine through. And the more the hole, like look at that hole already, just the prow part of it. I think that looks absolutely beautiful. It's suddenly already a piece that I know that I'm going to be proud of by the end of the process. And that makes me extremely happy. I'm going to jump over to some of the Black Legion contrast now, and we're going to use this just to block in any of the kind of vents and parts on the back of the hull. Like I said, we don't want this thing to be just a solid blue flyer. So it's time to start breaking up some of those other pieces. So all of the 5 vents on top, the canopy also. This model did have interior detail, it did have a pilot sitting in there, stuff like that, but it's not something that I wanted to work into. So before I sprayed the miniature black, I glued in the canopy, which had never been stuck on previously, and then sprayed over with black. Which is how I like the idea of not being able to see into cockpits. Just giving them that kind of glossy black look, which I think really looks well. At this stage, you want to be quite careful, especially using the new black contrast. This is very, very opaque. It's a very strong color. It doesn't leave much in the way of contrast, if you know what I mean. So if you hit the blue or the Sons of Horus Green with this color, it is going to stain it quite badly, and it's going to be quite hard with the way you apply the Sons of Horus Green to go back and repair that job. So I would recommend spending a little bit more time making sure you've always got a nice point on your brush and trying to be as neat as possible. Don't worry, we're not going to leave this as the solid black. We've got a few tricks up our sleeve to make it a little bit more interesting than just a black void. The next, what we did is I went and I mixed a little bit of kind of like an ivory bone color with the Sons of Horus Green. And just gave all of the very sharp points on the model a very light dry brush. In hindsight, I probably should have done this step before I did the Black Legion contrast, but I kind of forgot. And also it kind of worked out in my favor because I wanted to give the sharp edges of the cockpit a little dry brush of this as well, which I think worked out really well as like highlighting that plain black canopy. It almost looked like a reflection or shadow or something like that. We're still not going to just leave the canopy at that, you know, the black with the little dry brush. We've got one more trick up our sleeve, but I think it worked out well. Let's see, turn the model upside down, just getting those really sharp panel lined edges. And with these brushes, it makes doing this step an absolute breeze. And once it's done, this is the result. You can see all those nice bright edge highlights and everything. You can see the canopy like I was talking about. That nice line across the edges, which I think looks really cool. It's kind of an accident, but hey, live and learn. Next we went on to Retributor Armor Gold, and we just hit the Aquillas. And there's one on the nose prow here, and then there's one on the end of each of the wings. So I just hit them with a quick coat of Retributor Armor Gold. I'm unsure as to what stage in the Horus Heresy did the Loyalist Marines suddenly start to, or the Traitor Marines kind of defile and remove Aquillas. I always base my armies around the siege, so both my Sons of Horus and my Imperial Fists are supposed to be set around the siege. That's why everything is a little bit more wrecked, everything's a little bit more weathered, and I'm going to get to a weathering in a second. Another step I did was a light dry brush with a bit of dark silver across all of the engine components and all of the metal parts at the back. The reason I didn't use the Artist Opus brushes here is I'm kind of jamming these into weird angles and stuff, and the flat dry brush from Games Workshop does that job rather well, but it will also kind of wreck the brush a little bit, and I didn't really want to stuff my really nice Artist Opus brushes in and around all of those panels when one of these brushes will do. I've got a lot of these brushes spare, so it worked out a treat. And as you can see, all I'm doing is catching all those sharp details with dark silver. Quick and easy steps. A quick coat of red paint on the missiles that are sat underneath the wings. 2 thin coats of Mephisto on red is all I did here. It's another one of those things that not a lot of people are going to be looking at, so you don't need to go crazy with checkers or anything like that. I threw a coat of Ard coat across the canopy. This gave it that kind of glossy look, which is what I was going for. This was my sneaky trick I was telling you guys about earlier in the video. Quick and easy, but it definitely gives it that more canopy feel. Sun's gonna block the sun when this thing is dogfighting up in the stratosphere. It does have that kind of milky white, but as it dries it goes clear again. Next I went to all of the little lights and stuff across the hull. So there's a couple in the nose and some set into the wings and along the back. All I did with those is I painted them with bright silver, and then I covered them with Warp Lightning paint from the contrast range, just to make them look like those kind of night vision camera lenses and stuff, these sensors, which is going to help this thing operate in any and all times of the day, or space I suppose. It's quite dark too, isn't it? And this is one of those really quick and easy steps that I'm glad I took the time to do, because it just added that extra pinch of color. I went back in on those gold parts and gave them a touch of the same bright silver I used, just to give them a quick highlight, nothing special. I just didn't want to leave them as that flat gold. Next it was time for the transfers, so I dug out a bunch of Sons of Horus and 16th Legion transfers, picked out where they were all going to go, and then applied them across the hull of the entire vehicle. As you can see, I'm a huge fan of transfers. They go on really well. I've got videos to show you guys how to use transfers like this, so they go on flawlessly, no lines, no nothing, and they definitely add that little extra bit of flair to the miniature. But for me, the model was looking too clean as well. It is. If you like this, leave it here. It's a beautifully painted Sons of Horus Fire Raptor. For me, I definitely like the weathered look. It ties them into the Marines and all the other tanks. And like I said, I imagine this thing has been doing strafing runs across no man's land on Holy Terra during the siege for the last kind of 60 days. Launching rockets and bombs at the walls and then pulling out of the fight. And the amount of munitions and explosions going off on Terra, the amount of dust kicked up into the air. These things are going to be absolutely caked in dust and debris and dirt, and no one has any time to wash or maintain them, not while the siege itself is still going on. So I'm applying the kind of light rust color from Umbral into all of the little cracks and nooks anywhere where the 2 different panels of armor meet. It's a very quick kind of like a messed up wash brush, and I just dab it in, feed it into all the different areas and apply it to the hull. And with that is my final result. This is what I'm leaving this Sons of Horus Fire Raptor. I think the last thing to do is to name this beast. It should have some sort of a glorious name, and I can't think of one. So if you guys think of any glorious names that you think this thing should be called, please drop them in the comments below. If you pick a particularly good one, I will pick it out, name you guys in a future video, and stencil it onto the side of this brute. Thank you once again to my friend who donated this miniature to me to be able to do this cool video. Don't know whether he wants his name shout out, so I'm not going to do it just in case. But here I am with a beautiful Fire Raptors gunship in my collection. Thank you guys so much for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next video.